Alright guys, so we're going to start taking a look at subtraction. And really what we want to look at is knowing when do I subtract numbers. That's really important. You don't want to be adding when you're supposed to be subtracting. And really there are two cases where we subtract, and that is when something is being taken away. For instance, if Mr. G had a bag of candy and he was giving some away, then I'm subtracting from the total amount of candy I have. Or if I had a basket of apples and I was giving some of these apples away or eating some of these apples and I was losing the amount I had, then that's subtracting. I'm taking away from the total amount I have. And the other time we use subtraction is when we are comparing quantities. When we are comparing numbers, we subtract to find the difference between the two numbers. For instance, if I'm comparing like the numbers 5 and 3, then I would subtract 3 from 5 and I would find out that the difference is 2. Okay, 5 is 2 more than 3. So I use subtraction to figure that out. Or if maybe Mr. G has 120 cupcakes and Mr. Curtis has 220, then I would subtract to see who had the most cupcakes, comparing the two numbers, which number is bigger, and I'm comparing the two. Okay? So subtracting when something is being taken away. Again, this is here's an example of what I'm talking about. Okay? Mr. G has 15 apples. He gave 7 away to Mrs. G. How many apples does Mr. G have left? You would have 15 apples, like the equation over here says. 15 minus 7 equals, then you would figure out, well, how many apples did Mr. G have left after he gave them away. Take a look at this little diagram right here. This is really important to recognize and see. We use these for adding and subtracting and multiplying and all sorts of stuff. This top number is the total number. That's the big amount. That's the total amount of apples I'm starting with. And then you see down here I have the number 7, and that's what I'm taking away. And so this question mark is, well, how many do I have left? Notice how 7 and this missing number is going to equal this big part here, or it's going to equal the 15. Okay? That's important to be able to look at this table and recognize where the missing number is, and this will help you have different ways of figuring this out, because I can actually use addition to help me figure this out. If I am taking 7 from 15, I can actually say, well, what plus 7 gives me 15, and I'll find my answer. And in fact, I know that 7 plus 8 equals 15. Let me go ahead and move it further down. I can actually show you using these apples, okay? So right here I have 15 apples, and if I just start taking 7 away, boom. Let's use a different color here. Let's go with green. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I took 7 apples away, gave them to Mrs. G. Now I just simply count how many do I have left. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So therefore 15 minus 7 is going to give me 8. And here's some key words when looking at subtraction word problems to help you know that you are supposed to be subtracting and not adding. Some of those key words are gave away, because you're giving something away. Take away. decreased by, lost. So if I had a total amount of something and then I lost some of it, then I'm subtracting. And have left, okay? Because if I give something away, then I might be asking the question, well, how many is left, okay? So those are some key words, and these are up on our board in our room, that big giant board by the carpet, to help remind you when you're reading these word problems of when to subtract. So again, the next one we want to look at is subtracting when comparing quantities. And again, this is like comparing two different numbers. Or if somebody has a certain amount of objects and you want to see, well, who has more and by how many more do they have. Or maybe you're comparing how tall something is and you want to know how much taller it is. Then you're going to compare numbers by subtracting. Take a look at this example. Okay, Mr. Curtis ate 12 cupcakes at the school party. Mr. G ate 5 cupcakes. How many more cupcakes did Mr. Curtis eat than Mr. G? So in this case, I'm actually comparing two quantities. I'm comparing the 12 cupcakes that Mr. Curtis ate to the 5 cupcakes that Mr. G ate. And I want to know by how many more did they eat. Did Mr. Curtis eat than Mr. G? So I'm actually comparing the two numbers. I'm comparing the number 12 and number 5. And I want to know, well, how much bigger is 12 than 5? And that's what this diagram shows right here. I have the big number 12 on top because that's my big number. That's the number that I'm subtracting from. And then I have my 5 here. I have my 5 in there. And then the question mark is really that is the number I'm trying to, that's the difference I'm looking for. Well, how much bigger is 12 than 5? That question mark is what I'm looking for. And I can go down here and look at this picture, okay? And here's sort of what it looks like. Up top I have the cupcakes that Mr. Curtis ate, and then below it I have let me try to get my tools back up. I don't know where they disappeared to. Well, that's not working. Let's do it this way. So as you can see again, right here I have the cupcakes that Mr. Curtis ate, and then here are the cupcakes that Mr. G. And I'm comparing the size of them. So how much bigger is the cupcakes that Mr. Curtis ate versus Mr. G? So I can actually just kind of go down the line here and cross out the ones that are the same. Like this quantity that it has all the cross out, that's the same. But then this big long quantity going this way, that's the difference between the two numbers. And so I count that, and then I'll see how much more 12 is than 5. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in this question mark here, I would put a 7. So Mr. Curtis ate 7 more cupcakes than Mr. G. The number 12 is 7 bigger than the number 5. I'm comparing quantities. And again, here are some key words to look for when comparing quantities. If you see these words, you know you should be subtracting and not adding and not dividing and not multiplying. One is more than. If you look up in my example, you see that I have more than in purple. I want that to stick out because when you're going to subtract, more than is not actually going to be right next to each other, but you will still see that in the question. And when you see more than, you should know that you're comparing numbers and you're subtracting. You also see keywords like less than and fewer than and difference. Those are all key words that are telling you you should be subtracting. Okay, so what Ariana is talking about in the video is this. Let's take a look at this example down here. Mr. G has 63 cupcakes and sells 17. How many does Mr. G have left to sell? Well, in subtraction, we need to make sure that we are putting the bigger number on top. We need to make sure that the bigger number is what we're subtracting from. We can't have it the opposite way like Ariana showed us with the oranges. When she had 3 oranges on the table, we can't take 7 away from 3. It doesn't work that way. So, for instance, in this example, we need to make sure that we have 63 cupcakes. That's the big number. That's the very big number in this problem. Okay? And that's the total amount I have. So from the total amount, I'll be taking 17 cupcakes away. And it should look something like this. You have 63 on the top. It's definitely not going to look like this problem down here. Okay? That is wrong. Because you can't take 63 cupcakes away from 17. If I have 17 cupcakes, I don't have enough to take that many cupcakes away. So that would be the wrong equation. However, I can take 17 cupcakes from 63, so it should look like this, 63 minus 17. And of course my table is going to kind of look like this. $17 will now be in here, and then I want to find that missing number. So if I do the math, 63, I take 17 from it, it's going to give me 46. So if Mr. G has 63 cupcakes and he sells 17, then that means I will have 46 cupcakes left. So again, when we're subtraction, we have to make sure that the total amount, the big number, is on top and we're taking away the smaller number, just like Ariana pointed out in that video. Alright, good luck.